You might be wondering how the Constitution protects religious minorities, and yet news reports still talk about communal violence and discrimination, especially when you are preparing answers for UPSC Mains. By the end of this video, you will be completely clear about how the idea of minority is defined, what protections exist, where gaps appear, and how to write crisp exam answers on this topic. Let's begin with a simple picture. India is multilingual and multi-religious, where many communities have coexisted for centuries but do not always share equal power or status. First, a quick reality check on numbers to anchor your answer. Hindus are about 82.41% of the population, Muslims 11.67%, Christians 2.32%, Sikhs 2%, Buddhists 0.77%, Jains 0.41%, and others 0.43%. From these figures, it is clear that Hindus are the numerical majority. But constitutional protection treats minorities not only by numbers but by vulnerability and distinct identity. So what do we mean by minority? In the dictionary, it simply means a smaller number. But sociologically, a minority is a group singled out for unequal or inferior treatment. Practically, a minority group is a recognizable religious, linguistic, or ethnic community that faces disadvantage because of prejudice or discrimination. Think of it like a small island in a big sea, visible and distinct, but sometimes battered by tides of prejudice and exclusion. The Constitution gives us the legal framework to protect these islands. The preamble promises justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, and discrimination on religious grounds is prohibited. Article 25 guarantees freedom of conscience and religion. Article 29 allows any section of citizens to conserve language and culture. And Article 30 lets minorities establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. Article 15 prohibits discrimination in public places and access to state benefits. And institutional support includes the National Commission for Minorities to advise and protect notified communities. But having laws on paper and enforcing those laws are two different things. And this gap is central to exam answers on minority issues. You might be thinking, which problems are most important for answers? Focus on prejudice and discrimination, and the challenge of preserving distinct cultural life under pressure. Prejudice is an attitude, a prejudged negative evaluation, while discrimination is the action that denies opportunities or rights to members of a group. Use this distinction in your answers. Explain attitudes first, then connect them to social actions like exclusion from jobs, schools, or civic life. Manifestations include stereotyping, social distancing, biased policing, and denial of economic or educational opportunities despite constitutional safeguards. History gives stark examples. The anti-Sikh violence in Delhi in 1984, and the communal violence in Gujarat in 2002 show how state failure to protect minorities leads to loss of life, property, and confidence. Preservation of cultural life is another dimension. Article 30 writes, and minority educational institutions matter because they pass language, religion, and tradition across generations. Then there are politically sensitive issues like the Common Civil Code, where debates balance social equality against protection of religious practices. Proponents say a uniform code promotes equality. Opponents fear it intrudes on religious freedom. Well-rounded answers should mention both legal theory and practical caution urged by jurists. For instance, some jurists argue that a CCC should follow social integration and consensus, not be rushed in a manner that deepens communal tensions. Other specific problems include lack of adequate protection during communal disturbances, underrepresentation in bureaucracy and politics, and separatist tendencies in some regions. Each of these points can be linked to policy remedies: stronger law enforcement, targeted welfare schemes, affirmative action where needed, and better representation in public institutions. Institutional remedies include the NCM, judicial redress, state-level minority commissions, and targeted development programs to address socio-economic backwardness. Social measures are equally important. Community dialogue, interfaith engagement, and educational initiatives that reduce prejudice over time. And towards the end, we will understand a key idea that most UPSC aspirants miss. That key idea is this: constitutional guarantees are necessary but not sufficient. Social attitudes, administrative will, and political incentives determine whether rights become real on the ground. In your answers, always link constitutional provision to social reality and policy response. That causal chain is what distinguishes top-scoring answers. For exams, this topic is very important for GS Paper 1 and Paper 2, especially in questions on secularism, social empowerment, communalism, and public policy. Typical questions ask you to analyze causes, evaluate policy measures like minority welfare schemes, or suggest institutional reforms. Use data, constitutional references, and examples. A model approach: define the concept, cite constitutional provisions, discuss challenges with concrete examples, evaluate current policy, and conclude with balanced recommendations. For instance, you can start with the definitions and statistics, then discuss Articles 25, 29, 30, and 15, followed by episodes like 1984 and 2002 to show the enforcement gap. Then outline institutional remedies and offer clear steps. Strengthen policing and legal redress, expand educational access for minorities, ensure political representation, and promote inter-community dialogue. Keep language precise, avoid sweeping generalizations, and always link norms to lived outcomes. That clarity wins marks. Quick recap. Minorities are defined by distinct identity and vulnerability. The Constitution provides strong protections, but social prejudice, weak enforcement, and politicization create real problems. Remedies span legal safeguards, institutional bodies like the NCM, targeted development, inclusive representation, and long-term social education to reduce prejudice. You are now ready to convert this understanding into a structured answer. Remember the causal chain: law, practice, and policy. If you want model answers, mains notes, and practice questions on religious minorities and related constitutional issues, continue learning with EduRev for focused guidance. Stay curious, keep linking theory to real cases, and use balanced recommendations in your answers to stand out in UPSC evaluation. Good luck! And remember that clarity about these connections will make your answers both deep and practical.